What's going on, world? And welcome to the Pursuit of the Good Life podcast. I am your host, Cameron Lovelace, joined by my lovely co-host, the Dr. Sarah Benson. And guys, I'm so excited to just get started. I've wanted to do a podcast for a couple of years now. And so I'm glad that I have a partner now to do the podcast, because I don't know about you guys, but podcast with just one person is just a little dry to me. So I'm glad to have somebody who I know I can rely on, and the flamingo wants to add to the conversation too. So yeah, that's how I feel. But Sarah, how you doing?
I am doing good. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I'm doing good. Today is MLK Day, so it should be a day of rest and reflection.
Yep, talk about the dream, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. But I'm doing good. Today's a good day.
Right. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm hungry because I don't know how many religious folk we got in the audience, but it's that season when every church is doing the Daniel's fast. So our church is no different. And how are you doing? How are you holding up?
I'm actually doing good. You know what? This has probably been the first time that I have made it this far in a day.
What you mean? so you've given up is what you told me.
I wouldn't per se say giving up. Mm-hmm. I think what happens with me is I have the best intentions of like, hey, I'm going to do this Daniel fast. And for those of you who don't know, Daniel fast, a traditional Daniel fast is when you only do fruits and vegetables, water, for however long you want to do that. And I have the best intentions, but probably around like day 2, I'm like, yeah, I need a little something. I need like some bread or like some meat or something.
Okay.
But this time I'm prepared. I told myself I was gonna prepare, so I'm meal prepping. I have my little snacks, my apples and oranges and things, and so I think I'm doing pretty good.
Gotcha. So my modified version of the Daniel's fast, because I'm gonna be honest, if you know me at all, you know I love bread.
Okay.
So I have to have my little PB&J sandwich, peanut butter sandwich, some pizza, meatless pizza. That's kind of how I've gotten through. But I've really gotten through because of this. I don't know if you've heard of like the kind of services where you order it online and they ship you like the meals for the week. So I got one of those. They ain't giving us no sponsor, so I ain't gonna shout them out. But that's come up with the clutch because I didn't want to spend like all day on Pinterest looking up recipes, having to go to Walmart every other day to do that. So it's great that they just ship it to me. I figured it out. I just follow instructions, and they're pretty decent. I'd say 2 out of 3 last week were good. So okay. I have one more to earn. It's like a bean enchilada type situation. So look good. I have to show it to you later, but it looked good.
It looked good. Okay. Well, I actually have somebody meal prepping for me.
Oh, that you got connections.
She's amazing. So she does my lunch and my dinners for the week, and I just have to cover breakfast and then the weekend. And so last week was pretty cool. So she gave me like some salmon and some grilled chicken and like a bunch of veggies. So I've been doing pretty good on mine.
Okay.
I've been doing good.
Okay. Well, we good as far as that area, but let's go ahead and just hop into the topic. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're just 2 young millennials doing our thing, thizzle. Got 5 degrees between the 2 of us.
Yeah, 5.
Whole PhD over here. I didn't want to torture myself in the dissertation, but I supported her though. Like I was, go Sarah, you can do it. But yeah, we're 2 educated people of color who really wanted to contribute to the topic and really dive into the good life, because people in our kind of age demographic haven't all the way figured it out yet. So we want to make this podcast to help people in that pursuit of what the good life kind of looks like. But let's start with that question: is what is your definition of the good life for you?
My definition of the good life. So for me, I believe it's just being able to be your best self in every area of life. So being at your best with your health, your spiritual life, mental, emotionally. That's what I think of when I think of the good life. So I feel like if I feel good about myself, if I'm doing the things that I want to do, with my career, if I am, at a place where I am with my relationship with God, if I am doing the things that I want to do as far as my health, then that's when I feel like I've reached the good life, for me at least. What about you? What is your definition of the good life?
So for me, when I picture the good life, I picture kind of like some version of your own version of the American dream, where you have, a house, you're married, you got a dog, you got a good career. Cause like the house represents, you're at a point in your career where you can afford a house.
Okay.
You can buy the dog, you can have many dogs you want, you can start having kids. Like financially, you're in a place where you're not just comfortable, but you're able to like do some things. And of course, the marriage in this picture that I had growing up was just representing my relationship with my wife and starting the family dynamic. So that kind of, like I said, the kind of American dream kind of output where you got the the little white picket fence, you got the dog, you got the big house, you got the marriage with the pregnant wife and all that good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So that was kind of my picture, and I've kind of been in the pursuit of that. I've somewhat, I think, accomplished that. So now it's time to kind of expand what that good life kind of means. I think now it's more of getting to a place, one, where I want to financially, but also, being the giver that I am with my gifts and talents. Because, what is it to have a whole bunch of money, but,
it's just sitting up.
Yeah, your relationships are horrible. You don't have no friends, and, you don't have any purpose to your life. So now it's kind of in this transition. Now it's about, not only getting the bag, but also helping as much people as I can with the influence and stuff like that. But how are you pursuing that picture for you?
For me, I was gonna say, it sounds like when you were talking, I was thinking of like stability was the word that came up. Yep, so just being at a place of being stable. For me, when I look at that picture and I talk about being the best in every area of my life, I feel like I'm on the pursuit of that. Mm-hmm. So, like Cameron said, I've been in school for the past 10 years of my life. And so, did you take a break?
Did you take a break in between bachelor's and?
So I took a break in between. So I got my bachelor's, spent a year in law school, took a break, and then went to grad school.
Shout out to Jackson State.
Right, the I love. Thank you. And so I've literally spent the past, what's this, 2020?
Yep, 2020.
I spent the past 6 years in school, finishing up school. And so for me, life in school and life out of school is completely different. And so now I feel like I'm finally on like that journey of figuring out what my career is going to be, which will then provide a little more stability financially. I feel like I'm at a place where I can finally kind of focus on myself in a sense. So like while going through graduate school, I was involved in so many things. Because you still have to live life. So being a part of all of my friends' lives, being a part of church, being a part of community organizations. And so I gave a lot of like time and a lot of energy. And so now I feel like I'm at a place where I can kind of pour that into myself. So I am now working on my health. I'm working on setting up boundaries within like just relationships with people. I'm working on just my own piece of stability.
Right.
And so I feel like once I get that foundation of stability for myself, everything else is just going to flourish. So whether that's my career, whether that's relationships, whether that's just anything. And so I feel like I'm just at this place where I'm kind of starting out. I'm figuring it out as I go.
Now, I don't want to skip back something very important that you said, and that was I got to make sure that myself is together.
Yes.
First, I'm finally to a place because y'all don't know Sarah like I do, but You know, those that do know Sarah knows that Sarah will, you know, be the best supportive person. She will go out of her way to help you. She'll go like above and beyond to, you know, just be that supportive person, whether it's at church, whether it's, you know, showing up to your little birthday party at a restaurant, or whether it's traveling or whatever the case may be. Now, sometimes that can be a detriment to Sarah's self. And I have some of those qualities too, but you know, I think I'm a little more cutthroat than Sarah is, but
Very much so.
but she is she says that she's finally gotten to a point where it's about you now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are in that same kind of space too, where, you know, they're constantly being there for their friends, they're constantly, you know, going out of their way to, you know, support them. Like, I know my wife got it bad. For those of y'all who know Sparkle, I remember she traveled on 2 different occasions, like 4+ hours, where I had to drag along, and we had to support people who were like connected to her, because I don't want to name drop, but they're connected to her, but they don't reciprocate the same thing when it was time for us to get married, when it was time for our bridal showers, when it's our birthdays. They don't drive 4 hours, 2.5 hours. They don't go out of their way to support us. So I know, me personally, I had to tell her, I said, look, I'm not going on the next trip. So you got to do that for yourself. But it's important for people, you know, to get to that point. I don't want to skip past that. But tell me what it took to get to that point. Because, I mean, you said like now that you have been out of school because first you did, you know, K through 12 for 12 years. Then add on the 4 years. Was it 4 years or was it 5 years?
4.
So then it was 4 years at Jackson State.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there was a period, I know some of the story. There was a period where it was, you know, you thought it was this and then taught that and then traveled, all that good stuff. So talk a little bit about that. And of course, I'll share, of course, a little bit about me too.
Okay, so you want to talk about my schooling or just how I got to where I am now?
Kind of where you got to, so you can, obviously where you got to where you are now involves schooling. You got a whole PhD in educational psychology. If she ain't gonna say it, I will.
I do. So, like Cameron said, I grew up in the area, so I went to Horn Lake High School. And then I went to Jackson State for 4 years in Jackson, Mississippi. So after that, life got a little hazy. So bringing it back to the pursuit of the good life, most of the times when you're growing up, you're kind of trying to figure out what you want to be. Mm-hmm. And so because in school I made straight A's, people began to say, oh, you should go be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. You know, you should go be a lawyer. Lawyers, they make a lot of money. You should go do that. And so me, even as a child, because growing up, we really didn't have as much as like the next person, and we moved around a lot. And so at an early age, my idea of a good life, it did center around stability. Mm-hmm. And so early on, I was like, well, I need to do something to be stable. And in my mind, I thought having money means being stable. So I'm going to go be a lawyer. So I went to Jackson State. I did all 4 years trying to be a lawyer. Like, you could not have told me my freshman year.
So would you major in political science?
I majored in political science.
Oh, Lord. So you majored in one of the hardest majors that you can do.
Really? Mm-hmm. It's interesting because it wasn't hard for me. So, like I honestly and truthfully, I really and truly loved my major. I loved poli-sci.
So your perspective on it was different from other people.
Yeah, it was different. And maybe because, so me going to Jackson State, and what a lot of people don't know is that Mississippi has, and this is just a little sidebar, it is MLK Day. Mm-hmm. Mississippi has this amazing Black history that I never learned until I got to college. I went to high school, middle school here, was never told about this. Not even knowing that like a lot of like the key people in the movement, they were from my hometown. Had no idea. And so like people like Burrell McLemore, who was with Fannie Lou Hamer when they were speaking at the Democratic Convention. Like people like that. So these are the people, and Mr. McLemore actually started the political science department at Jackson State. Oh. So
it's a little pride.
Just bring that back. Right. So I loved it. So I felt like I was getting all this history. I was getting all this good stuff. My professors were amazing. I used to do these mock trial competitions. Yep. I've won scholarships to different law schools and things, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go be a lawyer because, I'm smart. I can get some money.
Okay. So everything was going in the direction of lawyer. I'm killing the game, mock trial tournaments, poli-sci is easy, and I'm going to go be a lawyer. So
I'm going to be a
graduation,
lawyer.
then what?
Graduation, I got into the University of Tulsa College of Law. And I'm just going to be so honest with you all. When I moved, like when I first got there and got into my apartment, like I just had this feeling of, what are you doing? But at that moment, I kind of thought it was like maybe just a little nervousness because I was 6 hours away. If you all know, Jackson State is a HBCU, and so we are pretty much 99% Black. And the city of Tulsa is like the opposite. So it's like if you've been there, it's like a
80%
white place.
20% everything else.
20% everything else. If you know a little bit of about Black history, you know that Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, and it got burned down. And so during that time, they kind of pushed majority of the Black neighborhoods to one side of town. And it's still kind of like that now. So of course there are Black people in different places, but like majority of the people are going to be on the north side. So I lived on the edge of downtown, which
With all the white people?
It was a little mix.
Oh, okay.
But the people that I was encountering every day, like I could probably count on one hand, how many Black people I saw a day.
That's interesting because when I moved here to Memphis, I remember for like a week, well, really like a month, I could probably count the number of white people that I saw here in Memphis. So that's interesting that you would say that.
Yeah, and so for me, who I grew up in Mississippi, I went to school in Mississippi. Of course, Mississippi has her thing, but like I was still used to just like a more of a diverse place, and I'm in this new spot, and that's not it.
Right.
And so I'm starting law school. I'm in this place. I'm thinking, okay, this is different. Let me try to give myself time. But eventually, it just got to a place where I just recognized that I wasn't as passionate about law as my classmates. So for me, it was like, it was more so like, okay, I just got to do this.
Now, this was when you were already in the mix. This was like first semester. Oh, so you were like...
This was in the mix. This is like the end of it. And I'm starting to think about this. I'm like, okay, what's really going on? And I realized that I wasn't as passionate about it. And so the second semester rolls around. And this random day, I'll never forget this day. I woke up and I just started researching counseling degrees.
Okay.
Which was really weird because I'm in law school. And I'm on the phone with these schools. I'm looking at online degrees. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to go to school online and get this counseling degree as well as do law school.
Okay.
And I'm like talking to people and they're like, well, why are you on the phone with us? And that really caused me to like take a moment and think about it because I was more inspired and just passionate in those 3 hours than I had been a whole semester.
So even though you had put in all this 4 hours of, I'm going to be a lawyer because it's stable, and you had been so passionate, you did the mock trial, you did all the extracurriculars in college, got into law school, which, number one, is not just a walk in the park. It's not the easiest thing to do, even in general. But then now you're experiencing more passion than you did on that whole process in this conversation about, counseling degrees.
Yeah. 3 hours. And so, and of course, at that moment, I'm not even thinking that, I need to leave. I'm just like, okay.
And this was like, what, October, September? Don't tell me this was September.
No.
Okay.
This was like March.
So this was almost the end of year one.
This is almost the end of year one.
Okay.
This is like March. And so, even in that moment, I'm like, okay, something's up. But I didn't even like explore that because in my mind, I'm like, I have to get this law degree. Like, I have to get this done. I need to be this lawyer. I need to make this happen. Even though, truth be told, I was miserable.
Oh, Lord.
Like,
so you were choosing the stability because of what it represented.
Because of what it represented, I was going to choose the stability of being a lawyer and making this money and being miserable. Yeah. Instead of thinking about, okay, your passion is over here. You can help people over here because ultimately my passion is helping people. And so in my mind, I thought, well, I have to keep going. So let me tell you a little bit of story. So how I ended up changing my mind, because there is a way, because clearly I'm not a lawyer. At my law school, I was at a very private law school. They grade on a different type of scale. And so you have to have at least a 2.0, or they are going to, you have to leave. And so for me,
wait, you have to maintain just a 2.0?
Just a 2.0.
Really?
Yes, just a 2.0.
I would think it would be at least like a 2.5, 2.8.
But it's a different grading scale. It's a different grading scale.
Okay.
So like, and so if you've heard anything about law school, you know that you have one test, and that's it. So you go to school all semester. One.
The whole semester.
Uno. Yeah, one. That's it. Per class. So you go to class the whole semester, and you get all this stuff. You're getting all this info. You're reading all these books, and you have one exam, and that's it. So what you make on this exam is...
So it's either a home run or you strike out immediately.
You strike out. It doesn't matter that...
Wow. Okay.
You came to class every day.
Whole lot of respect for lawyers now. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Continue.
yeah.
I mean, I already did. Not that I didn't.
Exam.
But yeah. Okay.
And so for me, I am not a good exam taker. But I was going to class every day. I was just on this journey, like I'm gonna get this done. And so at the time, so it's the second round of finals, and I had been praying at this time about like what did I need to do, because I was still remembering that day that I just felt passionate about counseling and all those things. I had made the decision to move back home, but I was going to transfer to the University of Memphis. And so I had been praying. I was just like, you know what, Lord, what should I do? What should I do? Because, you know, I'm here, but I'm miserable. But I don't know, like, what life is going to look like if I leave here. I'm a first-generation college student. I made it to law school. Like, I can't just up and leave. Like, what am I going to do? And so I'm preparing for finals. I'm studying. I'm doing all those things. And I take my finals. And I get my grades back. And for the first time ever, I made a 1.999.
Oh my. Okay. 1.99. So you just missed the cut.
Just missed the cut. And so for me.
Now, how did you feel? Yeah, how did you feel at Emma? Don't skip past that.
I'm not gonna skip past it. So for me, I was afraid. I was disappointed, but I was also relieved. I was relieved, and I was relieved because I felt like God had given me my answer with that, and that.
And what was that answer?
I needed to leave.
Okay.
I needed to leave. I needed to let this go, and so I took a step of faith, and I made the decision to leave. The dean, and I don't think I've ever told anybody this. So a week after I left, after I moved back home, the dean called me, and she said that she looked at my grades. She spoke with my professors, and each of my professors felt like I should still be there. And they felt like I could do it. They all said the same thing, that I was a great student in class. I came to class on time. I would do those things, and they all believed that maybe I just had a hard time taking tests, because they grade on a curve. So it's like you get the highest person, and they grade off of that. And so, and all of them just really agreed that that I should still be there.
And they'll give you another shot.
And she told me that if I wanted to stay, I could stay, because they had all the faith in me that I could do this, and that I could stay there. And I made the decision. I told her that I wanted to leave.
So leap of faith.
Leap of faith.
You cried out and came on back home.
Came on back home.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I was going to do next. And that was probably one of the hardest things for me.
That sounds scary.
It was extremely scary.
It sounds.
It was
terrifying.
It was extremely scary, because I had no plan. The only thing I knew was that God was calling me from that place, and that it could only get better. Mm-hmm. It could only get better. Like, that's what I had to remind myself, that it could only get better. And so that summer I moved back. I came up with a plan. I said that so I was going to go with counseling. So that day, I remembering that day that I spent time looking. So I started researching counseling programs within 50 miles of Memphis. I started trying to figure out the ones that were accredited, all of those things. So I had settled on the University of Memphis. And so my goal was to start in January, but I had to take the GRE. So remember when I said I don't like taking tests? Yep. I just did not want to take the GRE. I just didn't understand why I had to take the GRE, and I already took the LSAT. Because LSAT was really hard.
It's no joke by itself.
So I missed spring registration because I did not want to take the GRE. And I just got it together because I was working. I had a very great job, amazing job. I worked as a receptionist down at Harris Casino in one of the spas. And talking to my boss, and she was just like, Sarah, you need to go ahead and take the GRE. Like, you just need to go ahead and do it. Like,
she said, you just need to warm up and do it.
You just need to warm it up and do it. So I went and took the GRE, and then I went through that whole process, and I got my acceptance letter March of 2014 to start with the counseling program. Now, let me tell you how God works. So it's like, I find out I get into grad school, and then I find out a month later that they're shutting my job down. At the spot. Well, they shut the whole casino down.
Oh.
Yeah, they shut the whole casino down. And so I ended up losing my job before I started grad school. And I remember the day, my last day at work, and I came home, and I was just crying to my mom. And she was just like, why are you crying? And I was like, I need a job. Like, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm supposed to start grad school. Like, you know, and she just told me, she's like, it's going to be okay. She's like, it's all going to work out. And so started grad school fall of 2014.
Hadn't looked back since. Okay. So it sounds like I'm seeing the theme of stability a part of your story, and I mean, it sounds like that's really stuck with you throughout what your definition is of a good life.
Yeah.
And so that's dope. I mean, for me, because it wasn't necessarily about stability, because I had a different upbringing because, you know my mom.
Yeah.
Those that know my mom know. She has a whole PhD. And also growing up, my dad wasn't no slouch either. He went to Jackson State too, but he went the physical therapy route. So I had a speech therapist in the house. She went on to be a professor at Arkansas State. I'm an Arkansan, by the way. And of course, he wasn't no slouch either. He got physical therapy and then went on to own his own fitness business. And so, but I think for me, the key point of, I think me wanting, like I said, that picture of, me, my wife, a house, dog, all that stability stuff. One was because my dad was very ambitious. Okay. And so he, as far as like building his business, I definitely saw that hustle side of him. And even his brother has, a massage therapy school. So I saw the hustle. I guess it's in my blood, literally. But it really changed the game when they got a divorce, and I was 16, 17 years old. So it was like, all of my life, I see this power couple, on the surface. Everybody else is looking up to us as one of the, premier black families in the city. Yeah. We got a business over here. We got a professor over here. You got two sons growing up. Of course, they're going to college. Everything's all good. And then all that comes crumbling down when my mom comes into my room and says, me and your dad ain't going to make it. And so for me, that's why I think definitely that picture of that marriage being successful was definitely a really ingrained in that picture of like what my quote unquote, I guess, success was.
Yeah.
But that also like made me want to take relationships so seriously.
Okay.
To the point to where, don't get me wrong. Of course I've been on dates. Of course I get girls, but I didn't have a girlfriend until I started dating my wife.
Okay.
And so none of the other girls that I had been with, I call them situationships.
Okay.
And everybody always laughs when I say that. Looks like we're out of memory already. But, so sorry for everybody that's watching on YouTube. But that was definitely the kind of the focus, is that take your relationship seriously, but also that kind of was, I don't want to say it was a blessing, the divorce, but it was also like, I really would love for somebody to talk to, but I didn't feel comfortable talking to, all the people that are reaching out. My aunt's reaching out saying, hey, if you need somebody to talk to. My pastor's reaching out, hey, if you got somebody to talk to. Yeah, but y'all are too close to the situation.
Right.
I probably would have really loved to have a counselor, a therapist in that shape or form. Plus, for me, I was always the one who, friends came to when, they need advice. Because I give pretty solid advice. So I was like, you know what, let me go and pursue counseling. Because I feel like, they say pick a job that you'll do for free and you'll be happy all your days. And I found that to be true. So I didn't go to Jackson State. I went to University of Central Arkansas. Go Bears, PWI. Made a lot of great relationships there, got in student leadership, but was always focused on becoming a therapist and a counselor. Mm-hmm. And so then I got moved to Memphis, started working at a couple mental health facilities, got into University of Memphis counseling program, and, achieved eventually, fast forward to 2019, just last year, me and Sarah graduated on the same day in the spring, and got I finally got my therapist degree. I got my job, all that good stuff, and now it's like, great, I've accomplished this long goal that I've set in stone since I was 17, mm-hmm. and that was like a great accomplishment. But now I'm in the phase of, not hanging my hat on the accomplishments. Okay, you finally got your master's. Okay, that was last year. What you gonna do this year? What you gonna do 5 years from now? Because I don't know about everybody else, but I know for me, I planned my life in like 5-year steps. I always had like a 5-year plan, like whatever the case may be. When I was 17, I was like, okay, so I gotta get through this 4-year degree, have a decent GPA, so then I can get the master's degree. Okay, got into the master's degree program, finish up those 2 years, do the little internships here and there, get a job. And now here I am, like, okay, now what? So now like I said, now I'm in like the phase of life where my picture of the good life is changing. Okay. And I feel like a lot of people kind of get stuck in that change, because the reality is our picture of the good life does change over time, and that's okay. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. And there's fear in, like you said, there's fear in that change. There's so much fear and uncertainty. You don't know what's going on, but eventually you do. It works out because you do eventually figure it out. Yeah. And it's okay to take your time, even though you got your parents on your back telling them, okay, what you doing? You got your friends who knew this version of you in college, who was the student leader, the person who plays, the person who was killing the game, and everybody thought, oh yeah, that person's gonna be for you a lawyer. Yeah. But now you completely fit the script, or you're back home, heaven forbid, because some of y'all might be back home, and that's okay too.
And it's okay to be back home, y'all. I moved back home, and I want to say something really funny that you're about to say. So I have not set foot in a law school.
What?
Since April of 2013.
Wow.
Y'all, I have cousins on my mama's side who every time I go to Oklahoma City, they are asking me like law questions and asking me, am I a lawyer? And I have to tell them every time.
I didn't finish. Like, no.
I ain't even been in law school since 2013. I am a doctor. It is so funny to me because I'm like, y'all, I am not no.
Because they still picture you as the 18-year-old who said, I'm going to be a lawyer.
I'm going to be a lawyer, yeah. And the fact that they want my services. So that's the other story.
Yeah, we'll talk about family. But, I also, a part of the good life is also about, those relationships too. Not just, your career, but the relationships that you develop along the way. Yeah. And like I told you guys before, my parents' divorce, I'll say the divorce more so than the marriage, kind of impacted me in a way to take relationships more seriously. So I don't want to obviously make this just a career-driven podcast. I obviously want to talk about the relationships too and how they've kind of impacted me too, which I know you definitely circumvented your relationship part of that whole story. She ain't slick. I ain't gonna make her tell if she don't want to, but that definitely played a huge piece
I can tell
in her Oklahoma saga.
I can tell. So the piece of my career journey that I kind of left out because I thought we was just focusing on the career. So how I ended up. So I'm pretty sure many of you guys are probably wondering, how did she even end up in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Like, who goes to school in Tulsa, Oklahoma? From Jackson, Mississippi. So the guy that I was dating at the time, I met him my sophomore year of college, and he was from Tulsa. And so for 2 years, so sophomore year to senior year, we were dating. We were together. We had this plan. So he was going to be this doctor. I was going to be this lawyer. We were going to be your ideal power couple, modern day Cliff and Claire Huxtable. I'm telling you, like, we had
and she was gonna be the doctor.
Yeah, the doctor. Yes, we were your modern day Cliff and Claire. And so the plan was I was going to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma for law school, and I actually made up that decision to go because I just felt like we needed to work on our relationship. You know how you are when you're young and all of the red flags are there, but you're just like missing them. And so I was just like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to school there. Life is going to be great. It's going to work out. So I made the decision and I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so one of the things that happened, so your first year of law school, you're not supposed to work. And so he went with me to like all of my orientations. He was there for my preview day. So he spoke to other spouses during that time because they had like a cocktail party. He got to meet them. And so he was like, okay, I know my role. And he was like, my role is just to kind of support you during this first year because you can't work. And so he came down to Mississippi to my parents' house and told my parents that they didn't have to worry about nothing, that he was going to help me while I was in school, yada, yada, yada. So I moved August of 2012. By October of 2012, me and this young man were broken up.
Wait, say that one more time. Don't say it too fast. Hold on. You said when y'all? Okay. Yeah, I heard the breakup was October
of 2012.
2012. But he was at your mama's house
he was
saying
at my parents'
all
house,
these promises and
making these promises. So we had been dating for 2 years.
Right.
And so all of those 2 years, he of course, he would just do certain things. So he was like the first guy to ever take me out on a date. He would pay my little phone bill. So you know how you think somebody doing something because they paying your bills. Y'all had a phone bill that he paid, which was like $60. So we had kind of built what I thought was trust at that point. And I just really just believed that he was going to support me, like financially, emotionally, mentally, while I was going through this process. And so the good thing though, now I will say this is probably the one time I'm grateful for student loans. And I'm grateful for student loans is because you're starting law school, they know you're not working. They give you a lot of loans up front. And so when I received my refund check, I was smart enough to budget that out.
Right.
So I budgeted out my rent. My rent was paid up for the semester, lights, water, pretty much all my major bills, cable, all of those things were paid up.
Right.
So the only other things that I really needed to pay was like my car note, which he was supposed to pay half. Actually, no, I was paying it was like 60-40. He was supposed to pay his part of my car note. And just like groceries and things. And so he never really did anything, to be quite honest, when I look back on it. when I look back on that period of time, he didn't do nothing.
It's
I did all of that.
It's so amazing when we look back and we're like, what the
Right.
hell was I thinking?
What was I thinking? And so, like I said, I moved in August. By October, me and this young fella were broken up. At the time that we broke up, I had $0 to my name in my bank account. And I was just in a situation where I could not call home. And I had to figure it out. And so literally the day after we broke up, he had given me jewelry like over the years. I took those rings and I pawned them and I got $75.
All right.
And that was my gas. And so I just made it work. I ended up having to get a job.
That you wasn't supposed to have.
That I wasn't supposed to have, right? Ended up having to get a job. I was working overnight for a period of time. I also ended up working at this retail spot.
And this is all while
in law school.
This is all in that first year of law school where you just talked about you're second guessing even being a lawyer at all.
So I'm going through all of this. So that was actually one of the things. So my beginning of my second guessing, I actually would like try to talk to him about that. And instead of him being supportive, he was just like, you're complaining. And so his solution was either stop complaining or leave.
He said, you complaining?
Yeah, he said I was complaining. Now, mind you,
the lawyer, who shouldn't even be working,
was complaining.
Right. Who paid up all the rent.
Right. I was complaining.
Up front.
Right.
Okay.
I was complaining. Now, mind you, and this is just a little tidbit, I was the one that was super supportive of him in his endeavors, right? Like I got him into graduate school.
Oh, yeah.
I got him into medical school.
Don't skip past that.
I taught him how to study. I taught him how to prepare for the MCAT. I did all of these things. And do you know I never got a thank you? Like literally.
Hold on. No, you didn't.
Never got a thank you. So we broke up in October of 2012. He found out he got into medical school December 2012.
After you had wrote all the letters, got his little application together.
I was sitting in one of his advisors' office getting him a recommendation letter at one point. And so to me, I felt like, okay, if I'm going through this period of time where I'm starting to question things, I should be able to talk to the person that I'm dating. Like this is supposed to be the person, like we talked about getting married. We had a joint bank account. Like
y'all had a whole car together.
We had a whole car together. I should be able to tell you that I'm experiencing some doubt. Like I'm experiencing this period of time where I don't know if I belong here. And he just brushed over that. Just swept it to the side. So we ended up breaking up.
So when was enough? So when was enough is enough? Because I don't know. I mean, hopefully not too many people who are listening are going through the same thing. But I mean, they might. So when was like enough is enough? Because you had your own stuff going on, but yet you were still being tolerant and being supportive, and while you were going through your, mind you, let's repaint the picture here. You're going through your first semester of law school. You working. You shouldn't be working.
Well, no, I didn't get a job until after we broke up.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah,
but you paid up all the rent.
Yeah.
But on top of that, on top of your first semester of law school where you're getting all this information for this test at the end of the semester, you're helping him get into medical school.
Yeah.
So when was the straw that broke the camel's back? Is what I'm curious about.
So the straw that broke the camel's back was so the week that we broke up, it was just weird. Like, so he had came down the weekend before, and it was just weird. It was just like there was just this weird feeling. That's the only thing I can think of. And when he left, so he lived in Oklahoma City, which was about an hour apart. That whole week, we were just arguing, like over the littlest things. Like every conversation we had, it was an argument. And then he had made a major decision without telling me. And for me, so he was trying to go to medical school in Tulsa. And he had been looking for houses. Okay. And so we had been going on these house tours. He had been looking for houses. And like maybe that Wednesday or Thursday of that week, he had just casually said, and one of the few times we weren't arguing, casually said, yeah, I'm not going to get a house. I'm just going to get an apartment. And I was just like, okay, when did you make that decision? Because mind you, like we talked about everything. Like literally everything under the sun, every major decision, finances, whatever. We talked about it.
So the fact that he made that decision was a definite, huge red flag. Because he hadn't consulted, talked to you about it.
He had talked to me about it. And so at that point, I was like, okay, we've been arguing all week. He made this decision. Something isn't up. And so once again, I had just been praying, just like, Lord, just send me a sign, God. Even though, I'm just going to be really honest with you all, once I like really started reconnecting with God and just understanding how he works, the Lord had been sending me signs.
Ben sends you signals.
Long before then.
Okay.
Like we should not have made it 6 months, let alone 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And this particular day, another thing he did, he went to sleep. So he was such a control person that one of his ways of control was we had to pray together every night before we went to bed. That was his way of...
Okay, so elaborate more on that, because you saying control, but I'm sure a lot of sisters will be like, oh yeah, I can do that, but tell me how it was controlling.
So my ex-boyfriend, he was the type of person who he really did not like parties. He didn't want me to party. He wasn't this club person. He didn't want me to go out. Like he really wanted me to just be, honestly, he just wanted 24/7 access to me. So he just wanted me in my room. He wanted me at home so that he could just call me and talk to me whenever. And he just did not want me to be one of those girls that was just out or just doing any of those things. And me at that time period, I felt like, okay, I'm just going to do these things just to make him happy because we're going to be together. We're going to get married. He's going to take care of me, whatever. So one of his ways of making sure that I was at home was we had to pray every night. You see what I mean?
Yeah, okay, I see.
That's one of his ways of making sure.
So it was like, even though you said he didn't believe you when you would say you were at home.
Right. So we had to pray. And he was so adamant to the point to where I think I had went out once and we didn't pray, and that became this huge argument.
And this was around the time y'all were already arguing and stuff like that, or this was before then? Or
that was before then.
Okay.
That argument was before then. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why when on this particular night during that week, when he didn't want to pray, that's why I knew, like, okay, something is up.
Right.
Because this is the same person who we argued for dang near 2 days because we couldn't pray. And we have to pray because it's just so important. And so that night, he didn't want to pray and he just went to sleep. And so this is the only time I've ever done this. I'm not advocating for this, ladies. I checked his Facebook. Because he had given me his passwords. I checked his Facebook Messenger. And
check the DMs.
I found some messages between him and a friend where he had told the friend that he did not know how much longer he was going to be with me. And that he did not know if I was the one for him, that before he got with me, he thought he knew what he wanted, but after being with me, he realized that it wasn't me. And he did not know how much longer he was going to be here. And so for me, I was like, okay, Lord, I see you. So I made the decision for him. And the next morning, I woke up and I broke up with him. And that was the first time he had been nice to me all week. And I broke up with him.
So I don't want to skip past any of this because I don't want to, because I mean, it's a very interesting story. But I don't want to skip past, like, because of course I want to help other people, who are going through maybe a similar situation. So you saying that you, looking back now, you knew probably around, like, it sounds like he knew too at the 6 month part.
So I don't think he knew at 6 months, but I knew at 6 months. So
at 6 months, what red flags did you ignore that other people really should be paying attention to?
Just things about his character. Just a few controlling things had come up at 6 months that I think that when we think about control and we think about abuse, we only really think about like if this person hits you. I don't think we really talk about like the emotional abuse or the verbal things or the things that can come off as controlling that at those points in times, especially when you're young, you're like, oh, that's just how he is and it's no big deal. And, I don't have to go out anyway. Not really recognizing that, no, like that's very controlling. Like that should be a red flag. Like that's something that you don't deserve to be treated that way. Like you're not this person's child.
And so let me ask you this, because I want to skip past this. Is it because you hadn't been exposed to that before, or hadn't seen that in other relationships? Because I know for me personally, I know a lot of my learning and experiences is because I didn't necessarily see. Because like, for example, like you say, emotional abuse, I didn't necessarily see my dad made it a point to never argue like in front of us. And so while, that's cool, not to argue in front of your kids, but that's still a form of emotional abuse if you don't talk about it even within yourself, like between the two of you. So like you said, that can be like emotional abuses where you just either stonewall, shut down, or like you said, they're very controlling. So like I said, my question is, what was it, because you hadn't been exposed to that yet, or didn't know like even though you knew like something was wrong, you maybe couldn't put a label on it yet? Like say, okay, this is controlling behavior.
So I think it was a little bit of both. So like at that point in time, I didn't really notice that it was controlling because like my parents never did that. And so my parents have been married for going on 31 years. Glory. I know, right? Got married after 6 weeks of knowing each other. They're so crazy. In depth on that. And so looking back on it, I really didn't notice that it was really controlling. And I think the other piece of this, and this is kind of tying back into this whole idea of the good life and what we aspire to. Like I said before, he was the first guy to ever take me out on a date. He was the first guy to ever really kind of give me like this attention I was craving. Like he had, to me, I'm thinking, oh, he has money, not really realizing his parents had the money. He just was getting some of the lamp. You know what I mean?
That's true.
He was the first guy that was, he's able to pay for things. He's able to do things, And for me, thinking long term, well, he's going to be a doctor and I'm gonna be a lawyer, and he's gonna take care of me. We're gonna have these things. Like at that point, I was like, well, I can put up with this right now. Like I don't have to go out, right? That's why I used to tell myself, like, oh, I don't have to go out. Like it's cool. I don't have to do those things. Like that's not a big deal. Like it's no problem. I want to.
You started changing who you were.
Right. I started changing who I was. Like I want to show him that I'm worthy of this. Like because he told me what type of woman he wanted, and I want to show him that I could be that person because I want this life. Like I want to be a doctor's wife. I want to not have to worry about certain things. I want the stability.
Hold on. You said doctor's wife. I don't want to skip past that.
Yeah.
Because some people have that mentality is I want to be somebody's wife.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that I want to be a successful lawyer, successful counselor, successful, business nurse, whatever the case may be, but I want to be somebody's wife.
Yeah.
Whether that is a doctor or a rapper or whoever, don't matter as long as they are stable.
Yeah.
And let's not.
All goes back. Stable.
Connecting the dots. Okay. Cool.
And that was my mindset that I'm gonna be this wife as long as we're stable. Like, of course, I thought about, I'm gonna be a lawyer. Like, that's just a given. But
right.
To me, that idea of stability, that idea of not having to worry about certain things, that was what I thought about more so, and what allowed me to dismiss those red flags, right? Because it's okay, like that's not a big deal, but the reality of it is that is a big deal.
Yep.
That is something there's something wrong with that. Like there's something wrong there that you need to address. Like he was very emotionally abusive, very emotionally manipulative. Like this man could cry at the drop of a hat. Like, to go over every
right.
I
mean, obviously we don't, because that's 2.5 years of stuff you can probably reflect on. But but I definitely want to highlight that piece on changing who you were. and really prioritizing this idea of stability and being with, because I think a lot of people get caught up in that. I don't want to say necessarily women more than men, but I do hear this more from women that, you know, I stayed because of stability, or I stayed because I had this picture of us, you know, riding off into the sunset and eventually being happy, and having all these kids, or whatever their picture was, and I just looked over this little stuff, and I don't know why I stayed that long. So for those people who are listening, I just don't want to skip over, like, look at the red flags. Like, they're not white, they're not transparent, they're red
for a reason,
and make sure that you are really paying attention to that. And I wish, and I know we want to try to keep this podcast at least like an hour and some change, so I don't have time to go into like some of the different things that I've dealt with, but we'll definitely get into, you know, I guess how me and my wife met and developed and all that good stuff. But I definitely don't want to skip past, look at those red flags, and like when somebody, like, and it kind of behooves me, I mean, obviously knowing who you are now, and obviously you're not the same 19, 20, 22, 21, all the early 20s, you know, when you're just in early 20s, you're just in a completely different space. And, you know, realizing that I need to be worthy of him instead of being worthy of each other. And so let me be the best version of myself for him, but let me be the best version of myself. And I think that is where I think people kind of miss the mark, especially in relationship. Not just, you know, obviously, you know, pursuing the good life and, you know, getting financial stuff, but relationships do play a huge part of your journey.
They do.
Because if you get connected to the wrong person, that can take you on a completely different path. Because if you had been with, you know, the person who you're with now, and we'll get into that, if he had probably been like, okay, then quit. You know, he would. If this is not making you happy, then go do what makes you happy. If that means you got to move back home, okay, I got you. Versus that's what he would do now. Some of y'all wish y'all had a man like that. But because you were connected to this person who was very selfish.
It's all about him.
And not supportive, and not equally supportive, because you were supportive of him. You helped this man get into medical school,
which is not an easy thing to do, y'all.
Right. So you helped him do all this, but he couldn't reciprocate, and that's a huge red flag when it's not reciprocal. And so control. It's just so many layers to that.
When I tell y'all, it's so many layers to this. We could probably go 3 episodes on just that. On reciprocation.
Reciprocation for sure, and I'm sure, and we're gonna get to it, of course, but yeah, I think this is a good place to kind of just pause the conversation. We'll definitely pick it back up. But yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this first episode of The Pursuit of the Good Life. You know, talking about not only, I mean, I don't know if Sarah got much out of my story. I feel like her story was more interesting. You know, looking at stability and looking at
I got a lot out of your story.
And reciprocation. I'm just looking at all the nuggets. We definitely gonna revisit
this. I mean, to hear your story, and just see like the way you have conceptualized relationships and just your goals and things. I think that is really cool because I didn't know that. Like, I feel like I'm learning a lot about you through this process. You know, and seeing how things work.
A little open, but it's kind of surreal just hearing like the stories, and I really hope you guys are getting something out of this, and I hope you continue to listen to future episodes. But for now, follow us on Instagram. I'll have the Instagram hopefully up when we launch. But yeah, make sure you guys comment, subscribe. Please give us those 5 stars.
Please do.
5 stars only. No 1 star. No, for just 5 stars or nothing. Please.
And please comment, you guys. If y'all have questions or if there's anything that you hear that we say that you like us to dive in, please let us know.
Right. And as of episode 4, I think right now we're planning for 4. As of episode 4, we will take questions. So if you guys want, you know, something's going on in your relationships and you want us to chime in on it, or if you got a career question, we'll chime in on it, try to point you in the right direction. So comment questions or send the questions. I think we'll have a. You think we should set up an email address that they can just send it to,
Yeah,
or should we
we'll
set
set
up
up
just?
an email address so you all can email us your questions. And just the things that you're going through. It could be a life transition. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
We have 5 degrees between us. I'm pretty sure we have dealt with something.
Child, I can
Something
tell
that you're
you
probably
some
going
testimonies, Lord. But yeah, as far as anything that you guys want, as far as the good life, as far as career or relationship or everything in between, please send us those questions and make sure it's more interesting. We want to be intimate. We want you guys to be part of the show too. But until next time, keep pursuing, have faith, stay focused, and continue to fight the good fight. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.